And today the goal of this workshop is to really identify some of the key themes for the campaign. My name's Yasmin and I am a co-founder of YC UK and campaign manager for the youth-facing Violence Against Women and Girls campaign for Lambeth. Something that surprised me about the workshop today was how quickly people connected and were able to share pretty personal experiences of VORG.
It was just such an amazing space and everybody just came together and was also really supportive, and people were sharing things that were really private and personal. You could feel the whole room's support, so that was really lovely as well.
If I had to pick one thing that surprised me today is that when it comes to abuse and violence against women and girls, it's not just with strangers, it's also with family members, and that was really sad to hear.
I don't know if I'm necessarily surprised, but it does feel surprising to hear like the sheer amount of stories like the young women have like shared with us, and like some like really like triggering experiences, just like failings of like things like education and like parents at times, and like other like factors and like authoritative figures in people's lives. Like it's been quite surprising to hear that like firsthand.
I think how old school I want to say the school sector is. I felt like I knew that it wasn't fully developed or like always put in place to help the young people in certain situations, but I didn't know the capacity it was. Like I didn't know how many people experienced their teachers like betraying their trust.
What did surprise me is the younger group that came in, that were here as well. They were really like mindful. They really understood, you know, the differences, and like, you know, as someone who's a bit older than, not older, but a bit older in age, can see that how they still go through the same thing that I'm probably going through as well.
I just expected to, you know, try to inspire some people through telling my story, but also get insight to what else is happening around in the world that I might not be exposed to.
I think what surprised me today in particular was the fact that the younger girls who were in secondary school, that they felt so like empowered and open to speak up. I think that was like really great to see, and to see the different generations interacting and just finding where they relate to each other, and just being able to really understand that this process would be really great for loads of different people.
I didn't expect maybe the level of community and compassion and authenticity to form so quickly. It exceeded my expectations, to be honest. Pretty humbled by how it went. It was good.
I think with the conversations with the young men tomorrow, I would love to understand their perspective on this issue. This is often a conversation that I think is only spoken about with women in mind, but the reality is everyone is involved, everyone can be affected, and everyone can contribute as well.
Really today, what we really want is empathy. Our culture is all about people feeling heard, being heard, and there's no shame in this room.
Hi, I'm Chrissy and I'm one of the facilitators from YCK. I think today went really, really great. So we had a group of young men coming to speak and share their opinions, and also exchange knowledge with us and themselves. I did expect, I think, a lot of the boys to be quite shy and not say anything, because it's a topic that can be a bit triggering, or maybe it could be being uncomfortable to share stories or share positions where they probably found themselves, you know, doing things that they thought was not harassment but was.
Normally when I come to these sort of events, it's very closed, there's not that many people, but there was quite a lot of people. We had a very good conversation, it flowed, and as I said, like, I feel enlightened. There's so many different viewpoints, it just made me sort of change how I feel and how I think.
VORG has made me like see a different perspective to other stuff, but YC UK, I can't lie, I'm impressed by them. I must say I'm actually impressed.
There is a stigma, especially with young men, that we're all meant to be like this this hard macho man type thing, and no one wants to talk out. But it's clear to see that once we do get the opportunity to speak freely with no judgment, like we all kind of come to the same conclusion, and that is, we don't really need to be this. And literally talking stuff out just shows you how much in common you have with the person right next to you.
Today we began our concept design workshops, where we took the output from the previous workshops and began coming up with copy ideas to form the language for the campaign. What I'd like to see as the result for all the workshops is for what we came up with today and what we will come up with tomorrow to really be visible in the final product. I would love for the young people who attended today to see something they said on a bus stop in a few months' time.
Amazing! Today's been great. So I was so excited to work on this shoot with YCK, because this is how female stories are supposed to be told, with like dignity, care, with empathy, and also just giving the voice to the community that we're supposed to be serving. So I've just really been like inspired and like empowered by this, and just knowing that there's people like YCK that are willing to ally for females. It's just, yeah, and to be part of that as well, is change, to make change. Yeah, it's been good.
Ooh, today on set I found it's been a long day, it's been a tiring day, but it's been really beautifully positive. It's like such a heavy subject, but there's been laughter, there's been really great acting, really high emotions, and I feel a big release right now. I feel like this has been the climax of March to November, that's like 8 months working on this. So to get to this point, and now we get to deliver it, it's a big release. It feels like a really cathartic experience, even though it's been challenging.
Really good. It's my first shoot, so it's been a lot, but it's been really good. Really nice to see everything come together. The energy's quite high, as you can probably hear. But yeah, really good.
Today was very. It was ambitious, but I actually loved that we actually achieved everything. So it was good, it was fun, a lot of amazing minds, very talented individuals, amazing people to work with. It was a breath of fresh air. Some things were obviously stressful, long, but it was just to see everyone's creative vision come together. I loved that.
The reason why I wanted to get involved in this project is because I often have been surrounded by people who don't feel like they've been listened to, and I think as someone who's somewhat extroverted, I felt my responsibility was to give those people a voice if I can, and I thought it was a really important story at the same time as well, and something that needed to be spread in terms of awareness as well.
To me, I see harassment through the eyes and the experiences of all the young women I have the privilege to work with. On a personal level, it's nothing I experience. I don't think I've ever, as a male, really experienced a genuine act of harassment that was sexual beyond, physical intimidation. My experience through harassment has come through allyship, has come through learning and absorbing and hearing the stories of the young women I work with, so that I can make sure the companies I build and the practice I run is as safe and empathetic as possible. That's my experience, is really hearing the experience of those who actually experience it.
So one clear boundary is, first you ask for, you need to ask what her boundaries are.
But one clear one is when she says the word no. Once she says no, take no as an answer. Just take no as an answer.
You've got 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. You're meant to do more listening than talking. The purpose of conversation isn't for your voice to be heard, it's for dialogue to happen. So there needs to be an open conversation where women are able to express themselves, and men don't have to be the host of that conversation, but they should be still pushing forward to try and create spaces and also facilitate women being able to create spaces for themselves to talk and be prepared to listen.
Men could create safer spaces for women if they increase their level of emotional maturity. Like in intellectual, what's the word I'm looking for? Emotional maturity. If they understand that and themselves a little bit more, then maybe they can cater to women a little bit better.
To me, violence against women and girls is really disrespecting that boundary, whatever that boundary is. If you've drawn a line, whether you've said it or you've shown it in your physical actions, and someone chooses to cross it, I'd say that's where the act of violence occurs.
It comes in different forms, and it's something that doesn't, sit right internally within a woman, and leaves like a really bad effect on her, whether that be mentally, whether that be emotionally, physically, spiritually. The list goes on. Again, there's no limit, especially if it's damaged the woman or hurt the woman or made her feel uncomfortable.
My friends and I talk about harassment and abuse probably once every couple of months, because honestly I think it's a thing that we kind of brush to the side and kind of say to ourselves that it's not really that deep. So I think we don't think that like abuse and harassment is as big of a deal as it is sometimes, because it's so normalised, but it is every so often a conversation that's had when something that's crossed a really far line or has been really traumatic happens to someone.
I wouldn't say it's like a conversation that comes up often, but it's definitely something that is sort of like brought up whenever we are maybe partying or like clubbing. There'll always be that sort of like, oh, can you watch out for me? Or like, yeah, it's just more of a common understanding rather than like an active conversation, I would say.
Yeah, so after an experience of harassment or abuse, I mean, it's quite a deep question, because as someone who has experienced harassment and abuse, I think because you're not really given the tools in society to express those feelings, and you don't always know where to go, it's quite hard to manage your well-being, particularly when things are so normalised, so you're not always aware of what's going on at the time. And that's a journey I'm going on recently. How do you manage your well-being in that space? And it's a tricky one. I think going forwards, knowing where you can go and being able to identify what's happened to you does help you begin to process things, because if you can't articulate it, if you don't know what's happened, then how can you even depersonalize it and move past it?
I think my advice would be not to bottle it in, because I think the more we bottle it in as women, the more we are doing harm to ourselves. The more, like, even if it's that one incident that we think it's not small, like once it's done, call a friend and talk about how it made you feel, and also seek help, because I think we always leave it to the biggest, what we think is the biggest scale of harassment and abuse before we report it. But starting to report it from the earlier stage or the littlest things can then kind of help us understand that there's support out there, and that then it can help us not normalize it. 'Cause the more we don't talk about it, the more we normalize it, because we're like, it's fine, it just happens, it's not that deep.
Sound rolling? Sounds rolling.
Yasmin, interview, full campaign, wrap up, take one. For me, the highlight of the process was probably the day of the shoot. I think it was the perfect summary of all of the work we've been doing over the past 8 months now, and to see the amount of talent, different organisations and just people come together and contribute so much time and energy into such an important cause was really humbling, and I've never seen YCUK operate creatively on that scale before, and it was just a really beautiful day all round.
It's the way that at every step of the way this was a creative, positive, healing process that also simultaneously achieved a commercial need while addressing a social issue. That was the highlight, and that's what we set out to do.
I think seeing the campaign from inception to completion, I just feel like overwhelmingly proud of everybody who's worked on the project and everyone who's contributed to it.
The cultural approach that YCUK took, I think, is super, super important because it gives everybody an opportunity, a stage to talk, to actually put their views and ideas on the table as well and not feel secluded.
We were able to come into the space and be vulnerable. We were able to create a sisterhood with one another and support each other, but also being able to be also understanding and knowing that there was emotional well-being support for us if we needed it.
I think YCUK did pretty well throughout this project. I think we went through some growing pains doing something of this scale, having never done it before, particularly on a subject matter that's so complex. We weren't doing an out-of-home campaign for a shoe brand. You know, this was something with a lot more emotional nuances and a lot more trauma involved. So I think that reality made this quite a complicated brief. And despite that, we did what we said we were going to do. We authentically worked with people and enabled lots of different voices to participate.
Lambeth is a really diverse borough. There's lots of cultures in this borough, and it's really important to get all communities involved in this project.
I guess one thing that has surprised me is the openness of the client. I really do actually have to commend them on that. We have not been that easy on them, you know. I'm quite a value-led person, quite mission-oriented, and I'm also realising that I'm in service to a community that is directly affected by what we're working on. And I have to really shout out Rashida, the Vogue team, Hashi, all those at Lambeth that have given young creators an opportunity. We've always known we could do this, but we're just waiting for the industry to trust us to do it, and the communities we work with, and they took that jump, and I feel they'll be the first of many.
We've done something great. Every single one of us that has said something to contribute to this coming to life, like, we've done something great, and I feel like that's beautiful in itself.
I watch so many people I care about and respect go through it and create their way through it. You know, real go to places of trauma and then use creativity and resilience to solve problems, to heal themselves or to lay foundations for others to begin the path of healing. And it's a very inspiring place to be.
This campaign won't land well with everyone. There's no way to make something that everyone feels is relevant to them. And the truth is, the complexity of this issue can't be put into one campaign or one concept. But that doesn't mean that what we've created isn't still much more impactful than most campaigns on this subject matter. And I will forever be very, very proud of what we've done creatively, but also on a human level, to
to work with the women that I've worked with and the organisations throughout this process. We can't solve this, but we can spark some glimmers of hope in a very dark space, and I think that's worth doing, no matter what people may or may not think or feel about this campaign.
I was chilling, vibing out. He walked over through the crowd, touched me like he was allowed, disrespecting a large account. I didn't wanna have him around, so I tried to calm it down, but he crossed the boundary.
It was a good night, you know. Sasha had the drinks on deck, and Keisha couldn't stop complaining about her ex. A typical Saturday vibe session before we head out to start our night. We looked good, makeup on fleek, hair laid right. As we headed to the bus stop, our nightmare began. He honked his horn at us and parked up on the side of the road. Windows came down and he and his boys screamed, "Yo babes, let me chat to you still." We continued walking, trying not to look back. We heard footsteps behind us and we sped up quick. He then shouted, "You're all dead things anyway." He drove off, leaving us speechless. My mind started racing, had me question my outfit, feeling insecure. Had my mind spinning in circles, another man invading my space, refusing to accept boundaries, ruining our vibe.
And he crossed the boundary.